Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. International Council for Circular Economy welcomes you to the 12th episode of Season 4 of our Circular Chat series. The Circular Chat is an initiative by ICCE to develop and promote the idea of a circular economy and its related topics. This is episode 12, and we have our guest speaker, Mr. Inderjeet Singh, partner, financial advisory, Deloitte Touche Tohmatsu, India LLP with us. And the topic today is competitive advantage of ESG. Hi, Mr. Inderjeet. A very warm welcome to you on the Circular Chat.
Thank you very much, Surbhi. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be on your platform today.
Thank you, sir. And let me introduce Mr. Inderjeet to you. Inderjeet Singh is a partner and leads the ESG climate change and sustainability practice within financial advisory in Deloitte, India. He has more than 21 years of work experience in ESG, EHS, and sustainability risk assessment, policy and regulatory reforms, monitoring and evaluation, climate change mitigation and adaptation, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and sustainable development. He has worked extensively with both private sector players and public sector clients, including international donor agencies such as the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, IFC, UNDP, KfW, and GIZ on several occasions across Asia, Europe, and in African region. Mr. Inderjeet, thanks for joining us and supporting ICCE in its capacity building initiative. So today I have a few questions for you ready, and the audience can also ask questions later.
Perfect. Let's go ahead with it.
Sure. So my first question to you, sir, is that ESG is said to have impacted factors that enable a corporation to produce goods or services better than its competitors. How do you think these elements enable the producing unit to benefit?
Well, I believe this is an apt question to begin the discussions today. It's a very clear ask that what is in it for me. Any organization will think through it, whether it is a professionally managed organization or whether it is a promoter-run system. So let's begin with some of the technical benefits or tangible benefits that any organization can very clearly articulate and talk about while going ahead with having a stronger environment, social, and governance procedures put in place. The very first one that I can look at is the reduction in the iteration rate. So I'm looking at inbound towards the organization. In majority of the organization, if I look at my own organization, we have about 70-75% of colleagues which are millennials. And millennials these days are fairly sensitive when it comes to being environmentally sensitive, being environmentally benign, talking about organization or affiliation to an organization that is looking at society at large in a very calibrated way. So if you are able to reduce your iteration rate, that is something which can provide a very clear, tangible benefit to you as an organization. And this is something which is visibly there. I have done multiple interviews with the chief human resource officials in companies with whom we are dealing as part of the services that we are offering to the market. And they have articulated that since that time, we are making all these public disclosures that very clearly talks about, say, for example, the introduction of paternity leave policy, the equal pay between male and female workforce. In addition to that, even if there is no union in the organization, but if the organization is admitting the fact that we acknowledge the collective bargaining power of our employees, that itself very clearly is a tangible benefit. In addition to this, let's assume that, okay, there is a regulatory ask that we need to reduce our environmental footprint as part of environment, social, and governance. But if you look at the possibilities when you practically implement this, so you look at various measures of reducing your demand side energy efficiency. You look at the opportunities of reducing your dependence on water. You implement policies like zero liquid discharge. Once you have paid up for the capital invested, these investments will result into a very clear, tangible benefit or will add to the profit. So it is I would say it's a very clear strategy which says that post the returns on investment, I will have, in addition to the bottom line, it will have a very clear benefit to the long-term sustenance of the organization. And that is what which can again be articulated as something which is clearly beneficial for the organization. The third thing, which again I have witnessed as part of my working with multiple organizations, is that now time has come when larger organizations are making a very clear selection of preferred suppliers. So when it comes to selection of preferred suppliers in the upstream side, and if those preferred suppliers are following a very rigorous corporate governance, are very amicably looking at the society, are also conserving the environment, this clearly has a tangible benefit in the form of getting more business from the downstream value chain partners. And more business will result in more profits, more turnover, and long-term sustenance for the organization. So in a nutshell, it is not just the outbound, it is not just the investments that will go into environment, social, and governance. There is a very clear trajectory of inbound benefits to the organization, those who are putting these efforts and those who are institutionalizing certain measures, whether it is around environment, whether it is around society, or whether it is around a stronger corporate governance.
Absolutely. So, sir, ESG is also said to have been demonstrated to increase non-financial factors like consumer happiness, as you have rightly mentioned about the employees and all. So it actually affects the consumer happiness, market acceptance, lower cost of financing, and the societal benefits to its stakeholders. So can you shed some light on it?
Okay. I think I should pick up threads from what I have provided you in my initial narrative. Any organization, be it small, mid-size, large, whether you are listed organization, unlisted organization, in whichever ecosystem you are placing yourself, one of the very clear ascribed aspiration to any organization is that I want to provide my own experience. If I look at Deloitte from where I come, I would prefer to use a term like this is Deloitte experience. And so would be the case for any other organization. So when you are trying to look at the experience that can create a very clear differentiation in the market and can give you an eminence or can give you a pole position in terms of how you are considered as an organization, we have to look at it from that perspective. And if I have to just talk about environment, social, and governance in one line, this can well be considered as the new quality standard. And in case of setting up quality standards, there are no benchmarks per se. You can practically keep on innovating. You can keep on improving yourself. You can have a very fair and long-term view on not just the financial performance of the organization, but on long-term sustenance of the business. So practically, the whole idea of environment, social, and governance is to make a company look beyond shareholders. If you look at companies earlier, they were here to protect the shareholders' value. Now the time has come that we move from shareholders to stakeholders. Look at whoever is getting impacted by my business or whosoever is contributing to my business should be clearly part of the ecosystem play in which I am carrying out my business. And that should result into making a qualifying statement that am I a organization which is carrying out my business with a purpose. So if I transition myself from a profit-led organization to purpose-led organization, that is going to create the real value for the society in which the businesses are operating. And when we look at from the lens of any of the investors, right from the day zero, when any investment is made, the investors would very clearly look at the exit strategy. And they will only remain invested in the organizations, those who are clear in terms of their growth trajectory. So a very stable and promising growth trajectory is something which can be qualified based upon the holistic view on the business, wherein you are talking about not just the strength of the books through profit and loss statement, you are also talking about how you are looking at non-financial performance and its growth in the times to come, which will have, I believe, a very clear benefit in terms of negotiating better terms, in terms of having higher value of the organization, and so on and so forth. So it is not just the customer delight, or it is not just the customer experience that you are able to deliver through this new quality standard, but you are also able to fetch a lot of long-standing value for the organization, wherein investors can queue up at your doors and would ready to provide you with money. So access to market or access to money is something which can very easily be addressed if you are not just providing the strength of the books of the organization, but are also providing a very clear outlay of how you look at the society, how you look at the environment, how you look at the various material issues that an organization might be challenged in due course of time, be it from the regulatory aspect, be it from the court of law, or be it from the general public interest in terms of the businesses that you are being carrying out for all these years.
Sure. So very rightly said, and the very interesting point that you have mentioned, that we are looking forward to purpose-led organizations, not just process-led organizations, but purpose-led organizations in this. So according to several studies, sir, incorporating ESG aspects into valuation and investing decisions increases the stock premium and value of a company significantly. Can you share some examples of it?
I believe ESG is way deeper into the ecosystem now, and this growth has happened in last few years only. If you look at how this term was coined, it was coined way back in 2005, and I believe it has gone to back burner in the initial few years because that was the time when Kyoto Protocol and carbon markets were some of the front runners in the minds of each and every government and even the decision makers. But since the time this particular environment, social and governance related issues have started playing a principal role in the decision-making process of investments, that's where we have seen the traction getting built up. Of late, what I have also witnessed is that companies, those who are going in for listing, so whether it is the players among the gig economies or whether it is the traditional business which is going into the stock market listing, in the draft red herring prospectus itself, companies have started talking about various environment, social, and governance related issues. They want to highlight it very clearly to the reader or to the prospective investor, whether it is a retail investor or whether it is an institutional investor, that this is how I look at environment, social, and governance and its impact on my business. And going forward, once I have access to the market or once I have access to the public money, these are the actions which I am planning for first 100 days, for first 6 months, for first year, and so on and so forth. So very clearly, the whole idea of bringing in the non-financial performance indicators through environment, social, and governance is to create a higher valuation of the organization, to create the right kind of premium that the company would like to secure because of their very cautious understanding around the non-financial performance parameters and how it is going to impact their business in due course of time. So this can well be qualified as the kind of risks that a business is identifying well before they are entering into the market, and to what extent with their judicious understanding around non-financial performance indicators, they are able to either plug those gaps or they are able to find ways and means to rechannelize their business in a manner that can help them stay relevant and maintain the growth momentum to protect the shareholders' value. So it is again going back to protecting the value of the business, but making sure that you are not creating any offensive environment around you in terms of the business or the expansion plans that you have identified for yourself. We are aware of multiple such cases which were there in the market, wherein the non-financial aspects of the business have resulted in a downward trend. We all knew the Dieselgate, which happened in September 2015 and has resulted into the reduction in the market cap of one of the largest auto sector player. And similarly, there were examples from within India also that there was a copper smelter down south in the state of Tamil Nadu, wherein there were certain environmental issues which got converted into societal issues and which has resulted into the closing out of that particular plant, since courts have taken cognizance of the issues around, say, for example, non-financial performance of the organization. So it is both sides. If you are taking definite actions, you are going to get access to capital, you can negotiate better terms, you can deliver that experience which I have talked about earlier. And if you are an underperformer or if you are not delivering on environment, social, and governance, then there is a downward trail or there are setbacks which are possibly there on the horizon, and companies will have to prepare accordingly.
Sure. So we have these examples right in front of us, as you have rightly mentioned about the smelter case and all. So according to a research published by MCSI on companies, it was found that during a 4-year study period, organizations with high ESG ratings had lower capital expenses on average than enterprises with low ESG scores in both established and emerging economies. Both the cost of stock and the cost of debt followed the same pattern. Would you like to comment on this?
Well, I would say you have picked up Morgan Stanley as an example, but be it Morgan Stanley or be it any other environment, social and governance ranking and rating platforms such as Sustainalytics or Dow Jones Sustainability Index, they all have more or less converged and agreed upon on similar kinds of outputs through various surveys, studies that they have carried out. And it is very clearly also getting established through the activities that companies have taken up as part of this whole exercise of looking at environment, social and governance in a very calibrated manner. So if you look at, say, for example, the way I've suggested earlier also, that there is a ask that a company has to reduce its specific energy consumption. Now, the reduction in specific energy consumption or reduction in the specific environmental footprint will allow a company to look at alternate sources of energy. We have seen a transition that has happened in the fertilizer sector in India around 2008, 2009, 2010, wherein the fertilizer industry shifted from naphtha to natural gas. Now, this is something which has not only provided the environmental benefits to the company, but also the overall cost of production of fertilizers by switching over from naphtha to natural gas. Similarly, in a very realistic situation, if a company is looking at scope 2 emission reductions, and I believe the audience would be aware of what are scope 2 emissions. Scope 2 emissions are emissions which are based upon the consumption of electricity by any business. So the simplest or the easiest option for a company is to look at the available alternates, which could be solar, which could be wind, and if there are possibilities of hydro and so on and so forth, even that can be explored. All these alternate technologies were fairly costly as compared to the traditional power generation facilities, say, for example, the coal-based power generation facilities, I believe about 5 years back. But if you look at today's scenario, solar is literally competing, or rather, it has started winning hands down in terms of the overall pricing of the electricity that is being generated from renewable sources of energy. So there is a very clear advantage of carrying out these investments into alternate technologies. I believe it is only going to be a little bit difficult or time-taking for sectors which can be qualified as hard to abate sectors. And these could well be, say, for example, iron and steel, because in iron and steel, you need to have an integrated power generation facility, and that too, which is based upon conventional sources. Similarly, for steel sector, for textile sector, you again need that kind of power requirement, which should be uninterrupted in nature so that you are able to produce your goods in a timely manner and in a cost-effective manner. But for almost all other sectors, the kind of benefits after the repayment period, so even if you are not looking at, say, for example, capital investment, you simply go ahead, do a power purchase agreement with a third party, you are straight away getting financial benefits from day zero. The moment you shift from conventional energy to renewable energy, there is a tangible 50 paisa to a 1 rupee per kilowatt hour of electricity that you are securing from these alternate sources. You can look at all other measures, be it, say, for example, adopting a zero liquid discharge policy. The moment you implement that zero liquid discharge, you will make some capital investment. So that is obviously a capital heavy thing. But at the end of the day, right from the implementation of that technology, your demand of water will go down. And with that demand of water going down, even if it is not costing you so much, and the very reason of not making that qualifier is that we all do not know the true price of water. The true price of water is known the day when we don't get water in our premise or at our homes. But in all fairness, to whatever price point we are buying or we are able to secure these commodities, there are tangible benefits which are visibly there. And the payback period of most of these technologies is less than 2 years or 3 years at max. If we look at Indian Railways per se, why Indian Railways have gone ahead with electric traction. Today, we are about to achieve 100% of electric traction in India. Therefore, if we look at the preparedness of Indian Railways, it is almost there. So the day the grid is producing electricity, which has less dependence on fossil fuel, even our transportation, the surface transportation, is going to become net zero. So that is the kind of impact which we can very clearly ascribe to the environment, social, and governance, and the actions which have been taken by companies.
Sure. So you have mentioned about different sectors, how grade 2 emissions can be done. Now, would you mention that if any of these sectors we can replicate, the success of any of these sectors can be replicated, if you can cite an example?
Well, I believe ESG is one thing wherein you do not need to reinvent the wheel. You can practically look at the success that has been achieved by one of the players within your sector or within the market segment in which you play. So what one can do very simply, without even making use of a third party or a management consulting firm to guide you through, look at multiple environment, social, and governance ranking and rating platforms. You will not only find examples of the companies which are competing with you in the geography or territory in which you are carrying out business, but you will see international or multinational companies doing fairly well on the ranking and rating platforms. So say, for example, you have mentioned Morgan Stanley Capital International, or Sustainalytics, or EcoVadis, or Dow Jones Sustainability Index, you name, and there are multiple such opportunities through which one can practically derive the learnings and can apply it. So typically these ESG ranking and rating platforms can well be used as the springboard to success. There is no need that you spend the same number of years in reaching to a place which another organization which is competing with you has taken. You can actually bridge this gap in 12 months, in 24 months, provided you have, first of all, the wherewith to invest in those particular areas wherein your competition has already carried out investment, or at least even if it is not capital intensive exercise, if it only requires amendment in the policies in certain sections, you are ready or you are willing to quickly go ahead and bring those changes within your system so that you can be there in the shortest possible time. So that's my simple take, that don't look at creating something which is 100% bona fide or which is 100% new. You may have certain areas wherein you might need to start from scratch. But if you want to follow, I would not want to use the word copy here, but if you want to follow something in the form of footsteps or in the form of learning from the success that your competition has achieved, not just from within the geography in which you are operating, but from the international locations also, there is absolutely no harm. You can quickly align yourself to all these requirements, and it will also bear fruits in the shortest possible time when, say, for example, you start making your environment, social, and governance disclosures, be it in the form of BRSR, the Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, which is required to be something that top 1,000 listed companies will be attempting for at the end of the running financial year, or global reporting initiatives based disclosures, or international integrated reporting council based disclosures. There is no end to it, and these learnings can practically help you quickly gain momentum, develop insights, and also take charge of how you want to move from becoming part of a particular group to have, say, for example, building eminence in the shortest possible period of time.
Sure, sir, sure. So definitely, we can learn from the best practices which are already there, and not to start from scratch all over again. So it was a wonderful talk with you, sir. Thanks a lot for being here with us. And we would also like to thank everyone who was present here for this live session. And if you have any queries regarding this topic, do write to us on info@icce.com. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for joining us. We'll be back the same time next week. And if you don't want to miss out on any updates or future conversations, do follow our social media pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you, Mr. Inderjeet. Once again, thanks a lot for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Surabhi. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.